G'day friends and foes, I'm Arjay Martin, and this is Arjay's This Is Not Legal Advice, episode 22, or TINLA 22 for short, and nor is it legal advice. So I did a video yesterday using this same augmented reality emoji, or AR emoji, and, probably looks a little bit better than I do, so I'm doing it again, but with a different background so people can see that it is a different video. Anyway, uh, in that video I posted yesterday, I asked people about the purported protests that would be this weekend, and apparently there are going to be protests every weekend of this lockdown. So 2 p.m. in Sydney on a Saturday, and on Sunday at every Parliament House at noon. But anyway, not many people have gotten back to me if that is actually going to occur or not. So again, I don't know. I'm going to Brisbane tomorrow for midday to see if anyone's there and, document things. I'll be there with my phone, live streaming, that kind of thing. And, there's also other reasons to go to Brisbane as well, which I won't discuss at the moment, but that's fine. Anyway, so I was going to do a rather, I guess I should say, elaborate video going into legalities of protesting this lockout that haven't already been covered before. I do have TINLA episode 16 for you to watch, which has many legal references, as well as TINLA 21, again with legal references, some very relevant ones such as Evans against New South Wales, as an example, which was the, World Youth Day, Catholic Day protests, where the law purportedly was banning annoying Catholics who were marching in Sydney, and there was a group called the No to Pope Coalition, and they were giving out wire coat hangers symbolising abortions before, you had anti-abortion pills and doctors removing babies physically from their mothers, that kind of thing, as well as condoms, and they had paraphernalia such as shirts saying Pope go home and whatever. Anyway, so because the video didn't get many shares or views or whatever, there's not much point doing such a long video, and all the research that has to go into the videos, covering yet again other aspects not yet covered about protesting a lockdown. But instead I thought I would discuss what happened last weekend as well as today in Sydney. So last weekend in Sydney, there was a woman with her 4-year-old child who was arrested. Technically, the child was also detained, even though some people try and argue that that's not really arrest, but, the common law says detainment is arrest. But anyway, there was also Victor from Exercising My Rights, who was also arrested. And then apparently it turns out there's claims that they weren't arrested because they were let out with fines. But again, the proper definition of arrest is to not be free to go, basically. Anyway, so that relates to a police tactic, which is supposedly often employed, particularly by riot police, where if people aren't rioting and they're being peaceful in protesting, that some police will go out of their way to try and invoke rage, anger, that kind of thing with the peaceful protesters. So they do pick on vulnerable people, or people seen as vulnerable, such as, young children, mothers, old men and women, disabled people even, because that way it gets reported in the media and by the police that people were violent, so therefore they had to act, whereas in those particular cases people weren't being violent, and the police instigate the violence in the hope that people will be stupid enough to react and become violent. If some old man or old lady's being picked on by the police and dumped in a paddy wagon, that will enrage a lot of people, especially young males. By young, I mean, people under the age of 80, and I guess people over the age of 80 would also do that. But males, tend to have a lot more testosterone than females and have natural inbuilt, what would you call that, protective instincts against women, and especially women and especially old people and their own children. Of course, women also have protective instincts, especially of children and of their own children and families. But these are just generalizations, and the generalizations hold true generally speaking, and that's why such tactics are employed. There's a lot of police perhaps that have been training for years on all these super duper really cool tactics, how to arrest people, how to get through crowds of people to get a particular target, forming a wedge, capturing that target and then withdrawing. And instead of just practicing, even some might justify it as honing their skills, they like to practice it. And of course this isn't against all police. As I keep saying, hopefully all police, or the majority of police, are good people. Unfortunately, within that subsection of good people, there are a lot that turn a blind eye to bad police, and the police are to protect and serve, so to speak, even though that's probably just a Hollywood term, perhaps, or a US police term, but that's beside the point. Police are our brothers and sisters, cousins, whatever. So they're humans just like us, and most of them, are hopefully good people. But as I said, there are a minority that are bad, and there's also part of the majority that unfortunately allow the bad ones to get away with what they do. So anyway, I just worked out too that maybe with this AR emoji that the lips aren't in sync because I have a moustache, perhaps. But anyway, so that's what happened in Sydney. There were 2 people, or technically 3 people, arrested, detained, whatever you want to call it. I do think that it is a mistake, personally, and this is not legal advice, as I keep saying, and as my series is called, of these TINLA videos. But I do think it is a mistake where people say that they are not protesting. I much prefer the method of, if you are physically exercising as well, saying, hey, look, sure, we're protesting, we're also physically exercising. Even though that isn't really required, but that is a bonus protection. And why it's not required, you can watch my videos TINLA 14, 15, 16, 17 and 21, and maybe I left 1 or 2 out, but also what I was going to do today was further discuss it, but there wasn't much interest, so there's no point having people anticipate what will be said, etc. Anyway, so on Sunday there were 10 people, it was reported, arrested in Melbourne. That includes Craig Cole, who had blood pouring from his face, according to the videos that I've seen. There was also Thanos, who was arrested, and again, after the fact, people are saying that the people weren't arrested necessarily and just given fines, but it is really arrest. Anyway, Thanos was arrested when he started reading biblical lines from Revelations about the mark of the beast and, you know, ID 2020 slash RFID chips, which is interesting. Apparently they were rounding up the protest, and even though, you know, some people say it's not a protest, but as I just said, I think that's a mistake. And anyway, then basically the police marched in, made a wedge through the crowd, grabbed Thanos, and carted him away. And then I'm not sure who the other 8 people were who were arrested. In Adelaide, people marched through the Rundle Mall, chanting with placards, banners, whatever you want to call them, and no one was arrested there. Apparently there were about 50 people, according to Wally Daylight, who was there, who has, given me some information. In Brisbane, where I was, there were about 60 people. No one was arrested. The police were just observing and probably waiting for some kind of leader to stand up and start doing speeches, but perhaps being at Speaker's Corner had an effect. Outside of Parliament, as I think I've said in a previous video, that Speaker's Corner is a place in England where free speech is allowed, absolute free speech, and that probably has a big asterisk next to it nowadays, but that's what it was supposed to be. And besides Parliament, it was basically the only place that you could have absolute free speech, unless you are the monarch, because then you can have free speech, but, you know, if too many people get pissed off, then there's revolutions. Anyway, so in Brisbane it was fine. In Perth, there were arrests of 4 people. There was another person who apparently was handcuffed but not arrested. And then some people have been asking questions about that. Why that would occur. There was, for instance, Christy and her son were arrested, and I'm not sure who the other 2 people were. A lot of you will know who Christy is. And, it's interesting that different states have different outcomes. Then moving forward to today, because I don't think there was a protest in Sydney on the Sunday. I don't know about one. And then also Northern Territory or the ACT or Hobart. I don't know if there were protests. But anyway, then today, I just scrolled quickly through a hour-long video with Victor, with exercising my rights, or exercising your rights, whichever way it is. And as I said, I just scrolled through. It didn't seem that the police were there harassing people, annoying people, and really that is a victory. For if people do allow protesters to get arrested and then don't show up the next week, then basically it is a signal that arresting the people, which I would argue unlawfully in many instances, if not all the instances, is a good tactic for the government. Whereas if more people turn up and, where there was 50 people last week, there's 150 this weekend, and then 1,500 next weekend, that kind of thing, then pretty soon the government will stop arresting people, even if it's just from selfishness, thinking, hey, look at all these votes I'm missing out on. And that the so-called natives are restless, as the saying used to go. I don't know if that was from Tarzan or something, but it used to be a famous saying, the natives are restless. Maybe you can pop down in a comment where that line is from. I think it's a pretty cool line, although some people now get offended by the term natives, which is kind of stupid. It's just a word, and it's not used in a derogatory context here, so such is life. Anyway, So I will include some videos of various locations besides Brisbane from last week, because basically I have a whole hour-long video that I recorded of Brisbane, and I've not seen other people's footage from Brisbane, so it's no point me just putting, repetitive videos of my own video in different TINLA episodes, and E dot, which stands for events. So the E3 event was the protest last week in Brisbane. But anyway, I think that they're courageous people recording. They're also intelligent, especially live streaming, so that, law enforcement does tend to behave more if they are being recorded, which is why it is right to record law enforcement people, because those minority officers that are bad people, then, they might well behave themselves if they're being recorded. It also reminds me of another video that I might include, which I don't know if it was related to the COVID lockouts, but there was a man who claims he was being assaulted and had been just assaulted by the police, punched in the back of the head, etc., out the front of Penrith Police Station. And some Good Samaritan is recording for the safety of both the officers and the purported victim. And then officers are demanding that female, you can tell it's a female from the voice, demanded basically that she stops filming, and she says, no, I know my rights, and good on her for, recording that. Anyway, so I think the people are very courageous, and that the protests were peaceful, as can be clearly seen in these videos. Of course, say in Melbourne, the mainstream media, some of it, apparently just recorded people complaining after Thanos was arrested, and that's when people got G'd up, so to speak. And then, they show that on the news, making out that everyone's being crazy and violent before any arrests, and that's why the police have to arrest people. So please keep calm if you do go to protests. Be proud to call it a protest, because the law doesn't care about the style. Like if you say it's not a protest but clearly something is a protest, then there's substance over style. But protests do indeed have protections associated with them, and I was going to go into some of those protections, but I'll wait until I have a bigger audience, so the message isn't wasted and whatnot. So please enjoy these clips, and I think they're well filmed for the circumstances where people are filming on their phones and might be carrying things, that kind of thing. So that's my review of the protests as well, and I think it is bad what happened with people being arrested unjustly in those places where it did happen. So anyway, as I said, I haven't heard much about the protest tomorrow at midday at every parliament, so I'm going to go there anyway and see what happens, see if there is a protest, etc., in Brisbane in particular, because that's where I'm travelling to. And anyway, please like, share, subscribe, donate some money to support me in my efforts at paypal.me/Arjay Martin. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/C/Arjay Martin. So that's C as in, short for channel. Okay, thank you. Bye. So in this first video, you'll see Thanos. This is actually before the protest on the weekend, and he went to get questions answered or make a statement. He says several times that it's not a protest, which, as I said, I think is a mistake. And you'll also see another gentleman who is espousing basically fake law, David Wynn-Miller type things on the straw man fiction, legal fiction, straw man concept, false claims that all law is admiralty law, maritime law, blah blah blah. I will do a separate video on that later on, probably in a month or so. But anyway, you'll also see that he aggressively goes towards the police. That is a very bad idea. And basically, such aggression or aggressive moves, even though he's been reasonable, but can be an excuse for the police to crack down on people, arrest people, baton people, claiming that they are being assaulted. So again, it is, in my opinion, humble opinion, a mistake to say that it is not a protest, even though, someone can argue that clearly it is. But if the person doesn't believe it's a protest, then that might well make issues for them or remove lawful excuses for them. You'll also see the police state that they are not the government. That is incorrect. Of course, the police are a part of the executive arm of the government, and people that know a little bit about constitutional ineligibilities for parliamentarians. If someone is a police officer, they cannot run for parliament, be a candidate, or be elected. As one example, you can cite law if it floats your boat, like Sykes and Cleary, who was an unpaid, on leave school teacher for the state government, and he was prohibited based on that despite being on unpaid leave. So anyway, I think that the aggressive approach of the other gentleman is not the way to go. As you'll also see, it interferes with what Thanos was asking as his 5 questions, so you can't hear over the top. Instead you hear that he's a vegan and stuff like that. But anyway, I've just cut through little pieces of interesting parts. I had to make part of the video a little bit quieter too, because it goes very loud, and there's also a lot of, I guess I should say, ear pressure with trams going by, trains going by, etc. You should be able to find that video on Thanos's page or his group, the 99, I think it's called We Are the 99% United, something like that.
My name's Martin, how you going? My name's Thanos. I'm just, mate, to be honest, I'm just a concerned citizen. We're not here in protest, we're here to demand answers. Okay. Right? So I've got some questions and everyone's asking them, right? My question number 1, 95 people have died in 8 weeks and the whole country's been shut down. That's my first question. We were told the hospitals were going to be overrun, they're empty. Yes. Right? My next question is, why am I being told to download an app so I can leave my house and be coerced to do it by the government in order for me to be able to leave my house and have my freedoms back when only 95 people have died? Okay. And I'm not here to protest, I'm here just demanding an answer. That's all I'm here for. We're just here to create a statement so we can get some answers.
Yeah, but who are you asking?
We're just here to create a statement. This is all this is. It's a statement.
Okay. That almost fits the protest.
They're lying to everybody.
You're actually, I can understand what you say. You're saying you want answers.
Yes, real answers.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can I, brother, assist you, brother? So we do not comprehend, because understand means to stand under. And I'll bring you to task right now.
No,
you can't.
Why not?
Because I'm asking you a question, a direct question. I'm a member of this corporate entity at the moment. I'm a man living, yeah? Do you identify me as a living man? Yes or no?
I can see that.
Are you recording that at all times?
Not at all.
Look, why are you not recording it?
Look, what for?
Because it's proof of claim if we ever have to take this further.
I don't have to do that.
Well, that's it, because
Okay,
you're a service
all I'm
protected.
saying,
So they have no rights. What are you asking?
I'm not here to argue with you.
At the end of the day, you guys are in this just as much as we are.
I believe that you guys are
To be honest, guys, you believe, where's your proof of claim? Just produce the documentation, it'll be on your way, officer. If you'd like to call anyone, call them along. Sorry mate, just 1 second. Just 1 second. Just want to argue the point. Just give me 1 second.
I appreciate
guys, I just want to plead with you guys.
I'm in the same shoes.
Oh brother, they're trying to contact you. I'm not trying to answer
What you have
they
in
comprehend,
answer
don't you understand? They comprehend. Anyway, we don't have to register. Register means register means to give away. We record our action, and it's recorded right now. We do not consent. And it's not only here now, I bring you to class. Fraud in your behaviour. You're probably not aware of that, and I apologise for that. You understand what apology means, yes? You understand that? I am. You should be just as concerned. I'm arguing against the fact of COVID fraud, COVID and
So
my question is, if it's not a disease, it's called structural violence. What's so dangerous? It's something that I'll come back to. I understand that, but I'm pleading to you guys that if it's not a disease, what's the problem?
Hey, put all this on all the social media.
If there's no disease, why is the government trying to stick everyone with vaccination?
Make sure all of this is put on all social media, because tonight there's a million people going to be on TV on one of the Facebook sites. They won't let me put anything on Facebook. There's a federal judge in Alaska who ordered the arrest of Obama, and all bar members are now complicit in crimes against the people. Make sure all bar members are arrested, and they should be hung. Listen, you justice.
My area of duty is not in the supermarket. My area is the Parliament of Victoria. As it stands.
Are we able to exercise our human rights to? Are we able to exercise our rights to the Constitution for freedom of speech?
I wish I had
Freedom of speech is not at this point. This is we need to take into account that the state of emergency laws and ordinances in place.
Okay. State of emergency laws, do they basically take down our Constitution that all our laws are founded upon?
You need to discuss that with the parliamentarians.
Guys, I've got nothing against your job, man. If anything, I respect you guys wholeheartedly. I still respect you guys wholeheartedly, right? Because I know how hard it is to do your job. I honestly do. But they are lying to everybody.
See, again, you're identifying the government. We're not the government.
I understand that. I'm making a statement. It's freedom of speech.
You've made your statement.
It's just freedom of speech.
Unfortunately.
Does anyone else have anything else to say?
Absolutely. Now, I can only ask you to move on. If not, then you'll have to invoke getting a unit out here to move you on. So the choice is yours. What can I say to make it easier for you to
Under
understand?
Section 558, do you believe there's a reasonable belief that I've committed an offence right now?
There are 4 reasons you can come out under the current restriction law.
I've never argued with a policeman in my life.
Yeah, look,
I've always argued with them. I just have one
explain
question.
to you.
Under Section 458, is there, do people have a reasonable belief that I have committed an reasonable offence right now?
No, it's not.
Under Section 458 of the
You're
Victoria Crimes Act, is there a reasonable belief? Alright, can I ask you? We will leave.
You guys.
Can we please have the media out here?
Yeah, what does he want to get? Only persons can't do this. Say the people. People are living, they can't touch us.
We're going to move on. But what's your, are they for people or for persons? We're the people. We're living. I'm just sick of all. No more lies, man. Stop lying to everybody. Just stop lying to everybody.
Oh, look, I'm laughing because you're eating and talking, you know. Nothing to do with what you're doing here.
We're people, yeah? Are we living? Are we living people? At the end of the day, no more lies, man. That's it.
I'd like to say I'm not here to argue.
Yeah, and we don't. Neither am I. I've got my hands in my pockets.
Bring a bar member here. Bring one of the almighty law members here.
I'm not raising my voice. Paris,
I'm not yelling, I'm just speaking in terms.
I have my hands in my pockets. I'm maintaining my distance.
My hands are tight. I can't give you an answer.
I'm not maintaining anything. You want a hug? I'd like to give you a hug. Right, okay.
I understand you have to do a job. Just give me a second. I understand you're here to do a job.
This is like a state
Look,
show.
at the end of the day, my problem's not with you guys, right?
You're what?
But if we don't do this, if we don't actually start doing this, these guys are going to implement measures that are completely obliterate everything.
Totally, brother. How do you know this? Because you know this, brother. We've already done.
Is there anything that you want me to help you?
Yes, we would like to put in your statement. Saying fraud. Okay. Everyone is recording. Record this. I have 5 questions for the government.
Here we go.
Everyone watch these questions. Number 1, 90 people, 95 people have died in 8 weeks There's people all around construction sites and everything, calling all over each other. There's people in shopping centres. There's all these people still going around. 95 people have died. Give me an answer why I have to download them up. That's my first question. Second question, why do I have reports from hospitals that they've been told to falsify records? That's my second question.
You're a beautiful woman. Third question, good people here, brother.
Why
we got the way. If need be, I'll fight the toughest copper out here in the open. I'll kick the bug out of
I've
it.
met you before.
Have you?
Yeah. You're an ex-boxer, aren't you? Yeah. I met you with Daniel, the Levo bloke, back in the day. Don't you know they used to have a pizza shop or something? You're a vegan.
Yeah, I'm vegan, brother. Yeah.
So I met you.
No, we're all the same.
Terry Andrews or whatever your name is, who's meant to rubbish joint, just give me some answers. I'm not here to protest. I'm here asking questions, which is my constitutional right, because I don't trust
The
the
worst thing is to see a
proceedings of the
constitution
government.
dead in the con, right? And they usually trust. I'm a living man, they can't touch me. I'm not God, so are you. We just didn't realise it. They kept us as children, right? We're about to flood Victoria. They've been setting up a COVID operation along the coast. They're putting depth charges. They're going to pump the bottom of the ocean, explosives, and it's going to bring a wave. They already call, get this, what they call, wherever you, wind dam. Wind is a wind and a dam is a dam. That's what we kept yabbies, eh?
That's it. I'm just here. We're just here to request some answers. We're not here in protest. We're here to request answers because we don't trust our government.
I'm senior constable in
Because I've had respect for authority my whole life. I stopped respecting the government when they started implementing rules that didn't make sense and were taking advantage of people's intelligence. No problem. Guys, I think we achieved my goal today. Thank you very much. Much respect to what you guys do.
Put all this on social media.
Ask yourself the same question, guys, because they're good questions to ask.
I'm actually not even with this. I'm here by all. I'm one by my own. I stand by alone living.
Guys,
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for cooperating.
thank you very much.
Well done, bro.
So it's getting late in the night, and these videos take a really long time to go through and then chop them and basically render them and get them uploaded and broadcast. So I won't put all the protest videos that I was going to put together, find interesting bits and maybe analyze the videos a little bit and what's going on in them. So I'll just finish with this little clip, which is from NBN or Channel 9 News in Victoria. And basically it covers the parts that I'll keep in it, that Victoria has the strictest lockdown laws apparently in Australia, and also a warning to the protesters not to turn up, that protest leaders, if you want to call it that, or people organising, people protesting, were contacted by the Victorian government via the police and told not to do it. So anyway, I'll just put that in, and then I'll have to get this uploaded and do a part 2 on the videos later, probably tomorrow night or later on. Cheerio.
Victorians, however, are no closer to finding out when life will return to normal. Reid Butler's in Richmond tonight. Reid, the Premier isn't budging on his tough stance.
Not at all, Pete. It is very fine for the Prime Minister to announce a national framework in Canberra, but it is up to the states to implement that framework. And as we know, Victoria has been the toughest state in Australia when it comes to restrictions. It appears that won't be changing anytime soon. To find out when we will be able to do normal things like go to a restaurant, well, we'll have to wait 3 more days.
Nothing changes today, nothing changes tomorrow, nothing changes Sunday. The rules remain in place.
During an afternoon media conference, journalists too were hungry for answers.
Very clever, I like that. It's very good. It's Friday.
But the Premier served up nothing at all.
And I'm not going to foreshadow any further than that, even if the witty questions continue. Even at the end of May, there will still be rules in place, and they're there for a good reason.
And despite restrictions staying in place, 2 protests are planned for the CBD on Sunday. Kari Ann Greenbank joins us live. Kari, how many people are expected?
Well, police say they expect around 100 people at each protest. Pete, the first one is an anti-vaccination and anti-5G protest. The other, which will be held here outside Parliament, is a protest against this lockdown, one day out from restrictions potentially being eased. Now, the police minister is urging the organisers of both events to cancel or face the consequences. Lockdown protests are becoming familiar scenes across the globe, but here at home, the police minister is warning any demonstrators on the streets of the CBD on Sunday will be fined.
My plea is, if you're thinking of going to those protests, don't. If you do, Victoria Police will be there.